Please take a listen.
So I'm currently house hunting, and I said I didn't want to use any of my privileges. I want to experience what everybody experiences. So privileges being that I know a lot of people that own properties. Like you just tell them, "Oga, I'm looking for a house. Come and take my property. I might not even pay rent. Even if I'm paying rent, it's at my own rate." But I said, let me just go through the normal process. And boy, oh boy. Should we start from agents that I will give clear-cut instruction? Like, where I'm staying is very good. I love the house, but this is the reason why I'm leaving. So if you're showing me anywhere, it must meet this, as in, if it has this thing, I am not interested. Okay, sir. Only for them to not take me to a house that is worse than what I described that is making me leave where I'm staying. Should we talk tribalism? This one, I will not talk about it because it's a sensitive topic. I know people don't really think well. What did Igbo people do to... Like, do you know how many times I have to answer, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? I'll say where I am from. Say, we don't want Igbo. Thank God say no be Igbo, because I know how to disguise myself, right? I have multiple personalities. Is this a good discussion to have? Like, is it that there's something? Because me, I don't like to look at things from a sentimental point of view. I believe that if there's something, if a market is reacting somehow, there's a reason why it is like that. Like, people will not lose money because of tribalism. So if a landlord is saying, I don't need your money because you are Igbo, I want to believe that there's a reason for that beyond tribal sentiment. I mean, so many things to talk about, man. Like, it's ridiculous, to be honest.
All right. So I hope the audio is good now on Twitter. So that's Duru, and they put that out there and essentially talking about why. So they put it here. Why do a lot of landlords not want Igbo tenants? Please don't tribalize this. And then subsequently, he put up another post saying, I have over 20 stories from people sharing their personal experiences. Like I said, the average person will not reject your money because of your tribe. I knew it was beyond the usual tribal sentiment. One of these posts is from an Igbo property manager. So let's get into it. I'll tell you my own personal experience later. But remember what I said in the last video, if you watch it on YouTube. The last video, I already told you I don't like extremists. I don't like extremism. But if he's talking about keeping it a buck, I don't mind. Okay? So let's continue. Let me read his own stuff, then I'll tell you my own issue later. Hi, Bond, that is not James. My family has a house in Ojota. The only Igbo person we mistakenly in caps, the only Igbo person we mistakenly gave a flat to literally brought his whole village and is also the last to pay rent, utility bills, and so on. The man is wealthy, has many shops. The one in my mother's house in Alakpere is owing 3 years. He's trying to force us to sell to him. He said this to our face. We are in court though. This is a personal experience, not hearsay. They are not civil tenants at all. Another one. Baba, I have my property management firm and I can boldly tell you that our people are terrible. This is an Igbo person speaking. Walai, I manage nothing less than 300 tenants and I can beat my chest to tell you that this is a sad reality. Our people are terrible. Could you imagine that it is even to the extent that someone would even tell us at some point that she would tell a lawyer to come and draft an agreement for our house? Baba, I want mad. Another one says, I currently manage a house. Recently, we sold the house to another of my clients. Every other person has left the house since February. The Igbo guy is the only person that dragged us to court, and we are still on it. Apparently, he wants to buy the house, but for a lower price after valuing it, which made the owner sell to another buyer. The house was valued and sold for 250 million naira, but the Igbo tenant wanted to pay 150 million naira, which made the owner sell it to another serious buyer. Now he has not left the house, and we are in court. Most of the properties I manage, the strict instructions from the owner is, I don't want Igbo tenant. Another one. I'm a Yoruba landlord in Lagos, and my wife is Igbo, and she would never allow me taking an Igbo tenant, her own tribe. The last time I did it against her wish, we regretted it. Even the destruction of the property, I still have not touched it. If I send you the video, you will cry for me, except one is enemy of progress. Otaje. By the way, he's also responding like saying that these stories are unbelievable. Wow. So the guy now says, bro, it's not tribal sentiments. They have so many cultural issues and behavior that real sane society cannot deal with. I've said it several times. When people talk about Igbo, it's not about bad people. The thing is, it is not a people problem. It's a culture problem. It's the problem of the culture. The culture is underdeveloped. If I'm not telling ourselves the truth, what are you going to gain? There's no other group in the country that lives in another person's house and then begins to talk about buying the person's house. You are a tenant. Why would I want to sell my house to you? And this is not just a Nigerian thing. Even in South Africa, I played a video here the other day where someone in South Africa was saying that he hadn't paid his rent since 2017. Odenlo. 2025, 8 years. 8 years. He now made an offer to the landlady, this time the woman, that he wanted to buy the building. What kind of demonic mindset is that? Like, why would you offer to buy my house that I told you to live in and pay rent? This is the height of I'm very smart. That has not been smart. That has been demonic. Now, it's a cultural thing. Now, why? It's not about the person. It's about what you find everywhere. You're going to find individuals who don't do this, of course. But culture, this is how the culture works. Because if it's happening in Lagos, in Ibadan, in Akure, in South Africa, it has gone beyond just one person doing something. Let's continue. There are a few more things here. It says the common story is Igbo tenants wanting to take over the property, which aligns with the typical Igbo dogged ambition. While that itself is not bad, it is understandable why it offends other people. We need to understand the real issues to work towards a resolution. If you have ambition, carry your ambition, enter water. Don't carry your ambition, come and own my property. Who you be? I have my own personal experiences, so I will share it. May I read this one finish? Another person says, my dad retired into real estate, owns and manages houses in Abuja. He lives in Lagos, but has a small place, BQ, on this 3-bedroom bungalow property too. An Igbo doctor rented the main house for over 11 years, always paid on time, no problems. Then the tenant decided he wanted to buy the house. He said it was because his dad, that's my dad, spent his last, he said it was because his own dad spent his last years there. My dad said no, twice. First in person, then again in writing after the tenant sent a letter. My dad never tells tenants he is the owner. As a real estate agent who sells, buys and manages for himself and others, so he just said the owner wasn't selling. The tenant got mad after that. He started complaining about silly things and being rude. When my dad visited Abuja that time, the tenant blocked him aggressively, demanding to know who owned the house so he could make an offer himself. My dad again said no, the owner wouldn't sell. The next morning, as my dad was leaving for church, the tenant blocked him again and shouted that my dad wasn't going anywhere unless he told him who owned the house. My dad tried to walk away and the tenant shoved my dad hard to the ground, body slammed. My dad was almost 60 years old at this time. His wife and kid ran out to stop him. My dad's clothes got torn. I flew to Abuja right away when someone in the same estate notified a family friend who then notified me. Meanwhile, the tenant ran to the police first and lied, saying my dad was trying to illegally kick him out. Thankfully, my dad went to the police too. When the police saw my dad's torn clothes and heard both sides of the story, plus we had the letters where the tenant asked to buy the house and my dad said no, they knew the tenant was lying. They called the tenant. He hid, so they held his wife briefly to make him show up. He started apologizing, begging my dad and I wanted a court case. Then the police said they may suspend his doctor's license if we go to court. I was happy with that, but my dad didn't. My dad didn't. It was a case. My dad didn't want a case. But after so much begging, that's when he finally found out my dad was the owner all along. For 11 years, he didn't know much about my dad. He didn't know we existed or that when we visited Abuja, we stay elsewhere. I think he thought my dad was alone and weak, someone he could push around or oppress. My dad always says renting a shop to Igbo people is great. they pay on time and they don't cause trouble, as they don't want you coming to cause problems at their business. But renting them a house is found they often cause problems, trying to take you to court over rent, letting too many people stay in, subletting, being rude, trying to bully or even hurt you. And then add to the fact that they also want to buy the house. We have a few properties, and the only time the estate agent has ever said something about tenants, or the only times he have, because it wasn't once, he said a number of times, Naibo. And he said to me, we were talking the other day, sometime ago, I was like, we don't ever buy Ibos in lay. I was like, kilo share, because I like to do good people, great nation. Let me first ask, like, kilo share, like, wala want to put, because they me kilo come in be, wala want to put you, kiniko. This cultural issue is happening everywhere. And the properties I'm talking about, they're not in the same city. They're in different cities. And the issue is happening in those two cities. So all this crying of, they don't want to, by the way, I agree with whoever is, I mean, if your dad went through this, are you going to now become a real estate person or even build your own house and rent it out to people that did this to your dad? Especially when it's not a one case thing. Or like one time case, I mean. It's not like one person did it. It's an example you see. You know, the one that gets me mad is the offer to buy a house that is not yours. Why would you offer to buy my house? I've told you a story. There's a woman, I had a landlord many years ago. This is more than 10 years ago. This is more than many years ago. So we got very close. One day, his mother-in-law were having a conversation. Then he said to me, we were just talking, and he was like, that way, ọ̀rọ̀ ni òun lè jẹ́ kí Ìgbò gbalẹ̀ torí pé ilé ọmọ àwọn lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. The Igbo man stayed there and eventually brought up the idea of buying the property. She told her son that day that man was leaving that house. That's what she told her son. He came up with that idea, and he has been doing all kinds of things. Sometimes you will not pay, sometimes you will pay, sometimes you will not pay, until just try to frustrate you into selling the property. So she told her son that day that guy was leaving. That was when they started the whole process of getting him out. They went to the police, they had to do all kinds of things to get him out. And even then, you have to spend a lot of time, going to court. On top house, when will be your own. And you think people hate you. People don't hate you. They just can't stand that kind of culture. And on that matter, it's either you evolve or you exit those places. So, this is, in fact, let me read a few more things. We inherited a 6-flat building in Mushin. My siblings wanted to sell their flat and appealed to me as the elder brother to grant them the right to sell. After all the family rigmarole, it was eventually entrusted to me to find buyers. This was influenced based on my field. Do you know that the tenant didn't move out after a year notice was due? He eventually used 6 months afterwards without paying any shishi. This is 6 months after the purchase of the flat. On top of that, he removed all the burglar bars he fixed before leaving. The buyers thought we were graduate because he could not take possession as when due. Oh boy, there are too many examples there.